Yeah. And I'll introduce myself, see what I am, then I'll. You want me anything to say as I introduce you?
Just say it's me. You could follow me on X. I like to keep my, you know, I work in a completely different field, but kind of keep them out of that. So people
Yes,
most
same
know
thing.
me in the world at large on X, so they can follow me there.
All right, yeah, and I'll just talk about what I know, what I've seen of you. And it's
Yeah,
been years, so I appreciate you. I've been
I
reading your
appreciate it,
stuff
man.
for years, and I keep it completely real, authentic. So, but
Yeah,
it's worked, and I'll say it in my introduction. We're the only podcast that I know of that's been indexed by Apple without any corporate affiliation. So it's all been word of mouth
oh
till
really?
now. Till now. Now I'm going to take it to the next level, and you're the start. So, and anything you want to
Very
run
good.
by me, business wise, let me know. All right,
Beautiful.
and then make sure we're recording. Don't want to mess that up. We are live on YouTube, so we have backup. All
Beautiful.
right. Yeah, so we have that as backup, and then when you're talking, then I'll share it on Twitter. All right.
Awesome.
All right. So this is the mini relaunch of the SBC podcast, where every single podcast is a business meeting with a specific purpose and a specific outcome. Remember, your purpose drives your outcome. It's a mini relaunch. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we'll get deep into fundamental analysis, how you anticipate outcomes to monetize
Yeah.
sporting events. Right? That's what I do.
Uh,
Uh,
right.
in the business world, I have a securities license, clients that worth $50 million and above. So what does that mean to you? What it means to you is that what you're getting is I have an oath, right? Do the public no harm. So what you're getting is
Yeah.
this is financial concepts in order to anticipate those outcomes. All right. But I hate to use this crude term, but I think Mike, if he wants me to exit out, I can. But you never take an idiot to a drug deal, right? So I know a little bit about horse racing, but not a lot, right? So you always
Yeah.
bring an expert, somebody who's tougher, smarter than you are. And I've been following Mike for a while. And what Mike says and writes makes sense and makes money. And the reason I had, again, to use a crude term from the Northeast, the reason I had the boss ask Mike on the show today is because I didn't send him some good horse racing picks, right? From the degenerate
Yeah.
horse race guy from Hollywood, who's a Hollywood scriptwriter. We're working through some stuff. And I'm like, I tagged Mike on his picks. I like, you would like these horse picks. And we won every one, right? And some long
Yeah.
shots.
Yeah.
So it's
I
always
think
going to
he's
be
I think he's found his calling, whatever he does. Yeah, he's got an eye for long shots. I'll say that much.
right, right. We monetize it because it's not just a lot of people say, "Hey, oh, I knew that was going to happen, really," but did you monetize it? Did you get ahead of it? And Mike and I do that on a regular basis, so that's why I'm very fortunate, lucky, and good, man. That Mike is on, that Mike and I have a good rapport as we look forward to the future and anticipated outcomes. But we're a little different. We share it with people. All right. So, Mike, thank you. What are your first thoughts as we get into the Belmont Stakes?
Well, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me today. Long admired your work, admired your transparency and the way you approach your business and your life. So thanks for having me on. First and foremost, it's always nice to meet good people in person.
Oh,
When it
totally.
comes to
Appreciate the kind words.
when it comes to the Belmont, the way I start with every race is I consider the pace of the race. I
Okay.
look by first saying who's going to lead the race, who needs the lead, and uh, the reason I do that is it's been long proven over time that horses that lead at first call, which is after a quarter mile, uh, typically well outperform their odds and win a higher share of races over time than you would expect or you would model. And it's because horses that can get onto the lead uh, with an easy lead and relax, and horses are pack animals. They kind of follow the pack,
Right.
and they all typically have defined running styles. And so I'm looking to see who wants the lead, who needs it. And in cases like we saw in the Kentucky Derby, there were a number of horses that needed that lead. They went for it. The pace got hot. That completely set it up for Golden Tempo. In this field, not as much pace on. I think it's going to be really a race that you're not going to see Golden Tempo falling all the way out the back. I don't think he's going to be 20 lengths off of it. I think it's probably going to be a race where Power Shift, the number 2 horse, is leading.
Okay.
And you've got Emerging Market, the 8, I think will be right up there as well. I certainly think that a horse like Chief Wallaby might be a little bit closer. And I think the key to the race in a lot of ways is where the 4 Renegade, who's going to be favored in the early, betting he's a heavy favorite. I would presume he's going to be closer too. So when I look at it, that's the first thing that jumps out to me, is that there is not nearly as much pace on in this race as there was in the Kentucky Derby and as there was in the Preakness as well. And in that case, again, those speed horses went on with it pretty impressively. Though I think, and we can get into this, I think that kind of speaks to maybe the overall quality of that Derby, because horses that didn't run the Derby were 1, 2, 3 in the Preakness, and none of them, in my view, were really bred to go a mile and 3/16.
Right.
So I think the overriding question that handicappers have to answer in this race is, how good was the Kentucky Derby? And from there, I think you can start to answer some other questions about the Belmont.
Right. And what I like to do is I like to go from wide to kind of narrow. And Mike is 100% personal, and I am not. So from a cultural standpoint, Mike, and I'll get back in contact with Tim Conway Jr., right? His dad was on the Carol Burnett show. We had him on. It's a good podcast. I'll redo that podcast. He talked about that the way he learned math was his dad taking him to the racetrack. Right, and learning how to box. So in the last 5 years, and we get different experts on, we are, let's say, we're 13 out of 15, right? Making money off the race. In the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown, I've been able to monetize it. So I'm up $6,000 on the Triple Crown, putting $100 on my mother-in-law's racing strategy, and she's like in hospice care. So on her good days, she's losing. So she goes, listen, what you do is if the horses are just about equal on a big race, you take the horse in the middle of the track. So I took the 3 long shots in the middle of the track with a show ticket and hit it twice. So we're up 5. So it's always better be lucky than good, but you got to know your limitations. So I'll ask you a series of questions, because reaction podcast is always the best. So with that in mind, as I approach the Belmont Stakes, is it a good approach to say, okay, I'm not an expert, let me get Mike involved, and instead of betting the whole $5,000, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bet $1,000, and I'm locked in with $4,000 in profit. What do you think of that philosophy?
Well, bankroll management's a question for the individual. And so my guidance there would be, you do what feels right. What I would say about this race is that Derby excites me most years because it's 20 horses, and in my view, I can put an X through about 12 or 13 in terms of either being bred for it or the pace doesn't suit them, or they frankly just don't belong.
Right.
In this race, the issue I find is that I think there are very few. There's only a couple horses that I probably would toss outright, and I also tend to think that the favorite Renegade at the price that he's going to be, he's a very tough proposition because I think he's the most likely winner. If you ask me to
Right.
pick the most likely winner, I think it's Renegade.
Right.
That said, he's probably going to be even money, 7-5, something like that. So to me, it's going to be a Belmont where I think my place will be fairly limited, and I would probably look, what I would look to do is I'm interested again in the horse that's going to be in the lead power shift in terms of getting him into the number, probably under Renegade, maybe a little bit on top. The 5 Otinho is really interesting to me. He's very well bred. I think he's going to drop way back. And
Okay.
again, not a lot of pace on in this race, but I will point this out. When you don't have a lot of pace on sometimes, what ends up happening is I tend to think Renegade will be a little closer. I think Golden Tempo, they know that he can't be 20 lengths back, so he's probably going to use a little bit more energy. I think Coutinho is just going to be ridden for luck by Dylan Davis. So ridden for luck, I mean, I
Okay.
think he's going to go back and he's going to make one run. He's certainly bred. He's beautifully bred.
Right.
Certainly bred to get the distance. A little bit underexposed. He's someone I probably want to get the number. In the 8 emerging market, good tactical speed, liked him in the Derby quite a bit. I'm going to look to get him in as well. But, for this race, I personally, I will dabble. Um, you know, I liked the Preakness more as a proposition and, kind of right size, wrong shape in terms of, again, I really liked Bull by the Horns as a huge long shot closer. I thought that race would fall apart. It did. And as we sort of peel back the layers here, the
Right.
horses that came out of the Derby that were closers that were supposed to be flattered by this couldn't get there. And um, so it really, again, the question of how good that Derby was kind of hangs over this. I think the general sentiment is Renegade was probably the best horse in that Derby. He had some trouble. Golden Tempo, again, flattered by the pace, dropped way back, closed very well,
Right.
but I think he was flattered by the pace. But we look at some of the other horses that are in here that came out of the Derby. Chief Wallaby was okay. He was fourth. He ran fine. He's the one I think folks look at as another who could improve. He's one, again, if you dabble in exactas and things like that, I certainly wouldn't talk anybody out of it.
Right.
I've seen a little bit of buzz about Commandment, kind of a mid-pack type horse, came into the Derby with a really sterling record, won the Florida preps. I don't think that Florida form has held up. He wasn't great in the Derby, and I kind of wonder how good he is.
Right.
So it's going to be. So again, to not belabor it, I've seen more compelling races, and sometimes the best thing we can do in cases like this is to use baseball parlance, just take a couple small punches at pitches
Right.
you might think, might like. So, maybe getting Otinho under Renegade in some fashion might be interesting. So if you used your work from the middle standpoint, well,
Right.
Otinho is right in the middle. So but
Right.
he's
Totally.
he's one that he's one that as I've looked at it more he's gotten a little bit more interesting to me,
Right.
just because I think there might be another level for him to get.
Right. So from my perspective, my parents were from Cuba. So you look at a Triple Crown, you look at the pomp, the circumstances, the history behind, Kentucky, and most of the horses are owned by the Queen of England. So the whole environment, I think CBS or NBC for now doing a great job right from the beginning, the prep horses, kind of showing you the whole uh, cultural standpoint of it. So as a novice looking at it, the big races, and I think you give a lot of great insight on this on Twitter. The big races are different than the individual races throughout the years. The degenerate scriptwriter from Hollywood was great into that. He was great into like this was a claim horse that's brought by so and so, and it's put in this race for this, right? And then I would get in the bed, and then I'll put it on
Yeah.
Twitter, and I would tag Mike, and I think we won every single one of those. those random picks. But the big
Yeah, every time,
races,
every time you told me to pick one out, I was you'd win. And sometimes I'd see it in signs, and sometimes I'd be doing something else, and I go, I know, I missed my deposit for the day. That was I was counting on that. But yeah, no,
yeah,
it's like
yeah. When Mike and I post something on Twitter, it's currency, right? You're gonna win at a high percentage. But me
yeah,
not having that insight, right? I'd like to know your opinion on this approach. So I'll look at the Belmont. The two of them, I was
yeah,
trying to get you on. Something happened in my life. It was crazy. Things are just fortunate. Now things are calmed down. But I still wanted to bet the race, right? That's a distraction. And we ended up doing well, right? But you got to know your limitations. So when I look at the Belmont Stakes, or I look at any race, let's say a race throughout the year where I don't have the insight of you and the script writer, what I do is I knock off the favorite right away because the favorite only wins like 20% of the time and start doing my research on the other horses. Now, looking at this race at the Belmont, I do like researching and getting into Del Mar because it's close. The first day of Del Mar's the
yeah,
big deal. The only time, and I'll say this real quick, the only time I went to the first race in Del Mar, I was distracted because Jim Harbaugh was so drunk. That's such he was just way beyond being messed up. And I'm like, oh, that's Jim Harbaugh. But I digress. Uh, I
yeah.
look at, and then my cynical mind, right, looks at things like in this race, and let me know what you think, right? Todd Pletcher has three horses in this race. Am I
Yeah.
off? Right. So I take off the favorite, and then I see Todd Pletcher with three. And I know this happens, but let me know what you think of this. So if I know that a major guy like Todd Pletcher, who's won a lot in the Belmont, has three horses, is he telling his jockeys, hey, set a pick for XYZ horse? We don't know which one of the three it might be. It could be have a long shot, the number one who's slow, right? You're talking about pace. Right at the beginning of the rest, set a pick for the horse they want to win to get a more favorable ride. How's my thinking on that? Am I far off, or is there a legitimacy to that?
Well, I wouldn't. So I'm not so naive to say that there haven't been races and big races. And in fact, if you go back to the Belmont a number of years ago, where team tactics do occur,
Right.
where somebody, or it really looks like it to the world. Um, I think in this race, um, when you have a trainer who has three horses in the race, like we do in this case, well, the one thing you've got to do logically too is, um, and you certainly can understand this. It's it's not inexpensive to own a racehorse, and some of the connections here um, are some of the most high powered and big money in our game.
Right.
And so you can't necessarily, and I believe they're all different ownership. And again, I've got my notes in front of me, and I'm here in the car outside of a softball
Oh
game.
no, thank you
So
so
I don't
much.
have
Yeah.
the PPs with the ownership in front of me. But I would say this: I believe they're all different ownership groups. And I would say that if you get into a game where you favor one ownership group over another, all of a sudden you've got one ownership group instead of three. And now Todd Pletcher has a sort of again a vast ownership group and a lot of deep pockets, and Mike Rapoli has long been his biggest patron, but I don't see that necessarily happening here where it's
Right.
team tactics. I do think it is a case where I could see power shift, that early speed, setting it up for Renegade, but I don't think it would be something where it would be discussed. I just think it's in the tactics of the race where it's pretty obvious from the race flow. I think that the power shift in an emerging market would uh, probably be up there. So I don't look at it so much in those cases. You do look at it um, in rarer cases, and you don't see it. You're not seeing it in this Belmont, but you do see it occasionally sometimes where there's a so-called rabbit
Right.
put into the race. With Sierra Leone, who was a very good horse in recent years, he was one that had a rabbit. He was a closer, and then they had a horse that they would enter, and his job was to go as fast as possible near the lead and basically kind of bother others or kind of ensure a hot pace. They're called pacemakers in Europe, and you see that quite a bit, I think, more in terms of that. Here, I think it's sort of it's a neutral factor to me. All it means to me is that Todd Pletcher's got, he's got a really good 3-year-old barn again this year.
Right.
So that's the way I would approach it.
All right. And then last question before we get your picks, last reaction. As a novice, right? So I'll look at Del Mar, and what I'll do is not necessarily now I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to take your advice and look at the pace of the horse. But after I look at the pace of the horse, I'm going to look at not necessarily the horse, but I'm going to look at the jockey and I'm going to look at the trainer. Now I got lucked out
Yeah.
like 3 years ago when Flavian Pratt
Yep.
got on a roll in Del Mar and won like 45% of the races. So
Yep.
that's where my jockey thing was. And then the name escapes me, but there's Rapoli. Mr.
Yep.
Rapoli is an avid listener of the podcast, so thanks for listening. He always listens to all the Triple Crown, right? But I haven't yet emailed him back because he emailed the next email. I haven't emailed him back for information, right?
Yeah.
But he likes the football stuff. Is that a good strategy, right? Looking at who the trainer is, looking at who the jockey is, and it's very interesting. A Todd Pletcher or Chad Brown, the fact that they win 34 to 35% of their races, that's a phenomenal number. What are your thoughts on that, Mikey? And then what are your picks for the Belmont Stakes?
I think it largely that we've seen a number of trainers, leading trainers, I think, win at high percentages. Pletcher is certainly one of them. Chad Brown, Bill Mott still going strong
Right,
after so many years with Chief Wallaby. Brad Cox, who's in this race with
right,
Commandments, another one. I think what it speaks to is there has been a general consolidation at the top of horse racing in terms of quality horses going to certain trainers because of, again, the capital that's needed to buy the caliber of racehorse who typically makes it to this race.
right,
And so a Mike Rapoli, for example, he's going to want to return on his investment. And he's been a long time paired with Todd Pletcher. That's worked very well, and it's worked because Mike Rapoli and his team, his bloodstock agent and
right,
agents are very, very good at picking out skilled horses, and Todd Pletcher's really good at molding them. So he gets a lot of first round picks, but he knows how to coach them.
right,
So that's what kind of stands out to me. Obviously, this is a pretty this is a wonderful field again in terms of trainer quality. Again, even our longest shot here, Vitruvian Man, was Doug O'Neill. Doug O'Neill's won a couple of Kentucky Derbies.
Oh
He's
yeah, Doug
won with
O'Neill,
all
big
sorts
time
of
in
them.
Del Mar, yeah.
He's shown up in some big. He has shown up with some big horses in some big spots at long prices in New York, and he's run well. I think this one's a little bit overmatched, but that's a name that belongs on a marquee. And you've got Cherie DeVoe with the Derby winner. She wins at a very nice rate. I don't have it offhand, but I think it's between 15 to 18% or thereabouts. And she's someone that doesn't rush her horses. They don't look
Right.
to win first out, but they get better and better. And if she gets a good horse, she knows exactly what to do with them. So yeah, I mean it's really interesting the question you asked, because it speaks a lot to, again, where the game is. And it's something that I think is a little bit of a concern to some folks, in the sense that this middle market, and maybe it's like anything else, and
Right.
that the mid market, the smaller sort of businesses of horse racing, if you will, there's fewer and fewer horses to go around. And it's really expensive to run a barn with workers' comp insurance and all of those things. So in some ways, it's it's a sign of the quality of these trainers, and that they win. And on the other hand, it speaks to how tough the game it is, because the consolidation of really good horses with probably between 6 and 10 trainers, really, if you look at it nationally.
No, that's very interesting. And it falls into the fundamental analysis of it, where you always look at what the leadership is, what the structure is, and then you kind of look at what's going on in the market to be able to anticipate the outcomes. But more importantly to us, Mike has kids, so he can't just be anticipating outcomes. He has to monetize those outcomes
Yeah,
consistently.
that's right. That's right.
You got to do it on a consistent basis, you know? It's like when we first
Yeah.
got married, my wife, we were married 22 years, and she's like, where's all that money coming from? We're anticipating the outcomes of things.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? What are your top three horses in this field? Who do you like from my mother-in-law's point of view in the middle of the field, in the middle of the post, I guess you would say.
So I'll have the favorite on top, Renegade. I do think he's the best horse, the most likely winner. I think he'll be closer up. After that, I like Emerging Market, the 8 second. I've got Power Shift in third. And after that, you know, I'm going to put Otinio, the 5, fourth. So your box, the middle horses might be interesting. And
Nice.
again, that's nothing against. And as you spread and build tickets, if you can go deep in other spots, it, certainly Golden Tempo. There's nothing wrong with them. Uh, Commandment again, Chief Wallaby. I'm just kind of basically saying that I want out of that Derby. I think Emerging Market in terms of being second for me. I think he's got a little bit of upside to improve. Same thing with Renegade with a better trip. And then after that, the thing about Power Shift I like is, again, I think he's going to be on the lead quite a while. And Otinio is just my sort of thought that, anybody can run fourth in these things. He may well clunk up. And I just think this pace scenario in this Derby is going to be a little bit different. Renegade sits closer. He may not get first run, but I think if he can sit a little bit closer, he's got the strongest closing kick. And I think this distance hits him right between the eyes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that analysis. I love horses with a closing kick, because even if they might not
Yeah.
get the outcome we want, it makes it the entertainment, watching. All right, man. So great stuff. Another great podcast. Thank you, Mike. I love it, man, because we're giving you actionable information. And all of us, we're in the top 5% if you live in this country of wealth. But if you want to be independently wealthy, what you do is you take each one of our picks on the podcast individually, equal weighted. And you can't guarantee it, everything. The highest level probability is 80%, but to an 80% probability, your money will be saved